Hello, Board Game Shenanigans here. So for this video, I'm going to do a bit different. I'm going to cover 5 games that were on crowdfunding, whether that be Kickstarter or GameFound, and why I'm glad I didn't back them. It's not all the games that I've ever thought about backing, I'm glad I'm not backing, but I guess say it's the top 5 from 5 to 1 of why I'm more glad for each one, why I didn't actually pick them up. So for the first game will be Trudvang Legends from Simon, and I've gone with this one in particular for several reasons. If anyone's not aware of how Trudvang Legends' development went in the end, this one in particular, they had several times where they've gone and reset the entire game, decided no, we're not doing this anymore, we're changing it, we're changing designers, we're changing things about the game. So from the original plan that they originally had, this game's been delayed several times throughout the years, where this was originally on Kickstarter in summer 2019, and then it was supposed to come out late 2020, and then it missed that deadline, and it only actually, the first wave has actually shipped this year, where the second wave still isn't coming until at least next year. So this game was delayed for several years, and it had a lot of content behind it, a lot of things that are wave 1, wave 2. I think originally there might have only been the one wave, but they decided to split it to 2 midway through, so a lot of different things have happened to people here, where people who had backed this, they've been out of money for a while, they've not got their games, and still most of them haven't got everything, because most people go in for everything, all in type of thing with CMON type of games. I don't know if the stretch goals were a wave 2 as well, so maybe everyone's waiting, I'm not 200% sure, but I'm just glad I didn't get it in the end, really, simply because there's it was a game that came out, and it came out in the 2019, and for me, that summer is where I started getting into Kickstarter board games. So actually the first big game I actually backed was Bloodborne, the board game, which was directly before this one for CMON. So I'd already got onto that CMON hype train, and I'd gone, oh, Bloodborne's good, maybe this game's good too. So I'd, put a pledge down, early bird for this one, looked into it, and then as it the campaign went through it, I decided against it. And I think that several reasons at the time were that, for starters, they had stretch goals, and they were doing it where they do it in increments here with different values for how much they get. And I wasn't 100% into knowing what stretch goals were at the time, and how they worked, and how campaigns put these in there. And then I realised, well, what they're doing, why they're swapping to daily unlocks, and then I kind of realised, yeah, so because they weren't funding enough for what they wanted, they started changing the goalpost and saying, actually, we're going to do things like, unlock by Chinese pledges, and swapping to dailies, and it got to a point in the campaign where the total amount raised was going down. And I was kind of looking at the game a bit more at that point, and I was like, actually, maybe I shouldn't even bother with this one in the end. And it also got me into that, how the CMON feeds into making you want to spend more money. So they drip feed you in with, oh, here's your $100 pledge to start with, and then it goes, well, actually, here's another $40 add-on, another $40 add-on, and then eventually there's an all-in, and you've already, by that point, you've drip fed into wanting to get everything that they are selling in one pledge. And overall, just glad I didn't actually put my money down at the time. I just kind of stopped based on what I was seeing about stretch goals, what I was seeing about all the different add-ons. Did this game need add-ons? Could it have just been one box? There's different thoughts about that, and now I know more about games like CMON games. They just throw out as much as possible each campaign. So if you're gonna go in, you have to go in thinking, well, if I want everything, it's gonna be hundreds of dollars, not just 90 as it was here. And yeah, I mean, this one still isn't fully out there. They actually redesigned half the game like they changed things based on all the feedback they were getting and when they were changing designers. So it isn't exactly the same as how they advertised it in the beginning. So yeah, just glad I didn't get this one, and if I ever want to consider it, I'm sure it's out retail, and Simon released them to retail, so it's not something I really needed. So for number 4, to follow up, I'm going with Wild Ascent Levon Rising. So this is from Lazy Squire Games, and they decided to release this game before in a Kickstarter, and around the time this campaign came out, that game had started shipping out to everyone, and they were like, right, we're going to do a big campaign expansion to this game, and that's Levon Rising. And with this one, I was, tossing and turning about picking this one up from the day it came out, which was in the summer of 2021. And I didn't pledge at the time, I left it. And then it's been in late pledge for several years and only just kind of closed more recently. And for this one, I was considering getting it. It looked like a cool game. I saw like Board Game Co's review of it. He gives it high praise. Not a lot of people have given it high praise, but I think that's because it was quite a niche game to begin with. Not too many people have got into it. So I was considering it to pick it up. But just as they say with their name, Lazy Squire Games, they are a bit slow at making the games, getting them out there. We're in 2023. Still, Wave 1's not out. It was supposed to come out early 2022 with the Levon Rise in late 2022. But here we are, late 2023, probably not coming out till next year for the first wave, which is supposed to just be a reprint of the original content with redone minis. But it's taken them that long to get to that step. I'm thinking, Levon Rising, we're looking at a few years away if it's actually coming. And another reason why I just don't want to get it is, well, Storm Thunder was supposed to deliver, and that's a game I actually have backed. Well, that would have been on the list if I didn't back it in the end, but I did get that one, so that one's just as long a wait as this one, really. It's very similar in style because of their miniature style and art style. They're very similar in general, but I think Storm Thunder looked like the better game anyway. But this one is just, I turned it down, and I'm glad I'm not looked back about it. I'm glad I've not picked it up. And if it comes out in a few years and it's good, well, that's all right. But for me, I'm glad I didn't. I've actually seen the original in a retail store a few times and considered that as well. So if I ever go back around to those stores, if they still got it, because I don't think many people are into this game and picking it up, I can pick up the old version and enjoy that instead of worrying about waiting years to get a copy through a GameFound campaign. Yeah, and that's that one. So next one, a little bit different, and that's going with Encyclopedia. And with Encyclopedia, this one, I could have actually pledged and got it, but the risk there was that Holy Grail Games, shortly after they were saying we were doing all the shipping for this and did it all, they have gone out of business. They've stopped making games. They're saying they've got not got the money to do anything anymore. They're going bankrupt. So this one is a bit different in that way, in the regard where have actually purchased the game from retail after the fact, just after they decided to go bust on this, because it came out of retail around the same time that they said that they're done. So I was going to get it in the pledge at the time, but I kind of just stopped myself. So it's a type of game that will come to retail, and I didn't really pick it up. And if I did pick it up at the pledge time, it might have been that I didn't actually have it delivered to me, because it was that on the cusp of the time that they run out of money. If I pledged this, I could pledge their other games and lost money that way, because the games they made after this, none of them have actually been able to ship. So with this one, it didn't really give me anything like as a message to be like, I've learned a bit about board gaming, learn a bit about Kickstarters, because with this one, they didn't really show it on the surface that they had any struggles with money and things like that. They were pumping out more games, but it could have just been they were being more creative and getting them out the door quicker. But for this one in particular, they look good from here. I picked it up. I've enjoyed the game, but if I just got into their the games that they make, I would have been out of money. It could have been possible that this one didn't ship or other ones that they made after didn't. I also considered games like Museum. I almost backed that a few times, and I don't know if everyone got that either. If they're having struggles shipping things out, shipping, how much it was been costing the last few years, that's probably what's made it difficult for them to get games to people for a lot of companies, and probably this one included. That's where they were losing a lot of money. 300,000 euros. It wasn't the massive big seller game, but this one probably saved the company a lot more, because I think this one was backed by more people than the campaigns they did after this. But yeah, this one, glad I didn't, but I bought the game afterwards and do enjoy it. So for the next game is a game that also has not been delivered, and that is Dawn of Madness. And with Dawn of Madness, this one, I was really looking into this one a lot at the time. I think I had one of these pledges down here where it was like a Black Friday deal, which was a bit of a silly decision at the time when they were trying to sell the game a bit cheaper and doing limited pledges where people could try and get into the cheap ones. 200 people got into this one here for $288. I was in one of these at one point, and then I just kind of dropped it because I was just like not into it. Someone else picked it up after me. But for this one, definitely glad I didn't, simply because this game was in 2019 and it did have a 2-year development plan. They were going to release it in the end of 2021, as it states here, and then a wave 2 a year later. Well, here we are late 2023 and we still haven't got wave 1, so it's 2 years late as a game. They keep doing more updates. They've got the miniatures done, yeah, we've got this done, but then the story's just a mile behind. They're not catching up. They've still got loads to write. They're dragging on the updates every so month, so many weeks, and it's not likely to come this year, in my opinion, from what we're seeing. They keep saying they're doing more stories, and I think the story writing and stuff, that's a long time to get through that and proofread it. So, and this is just for wave 1, and then we've got more stories to come. It could be another 2, 3, 4 years before we get everything if they don't pick up the pace with the next wave. So in general, this one I'm just pretty glad I didn't. You can still late pledge for it. It could be possible that, if they say the big red button's been hit, we're going to print it and we're going to close the pledge manager at the end of the month, that could be sort of time I could go and pick up something here. But I'm glad that they don't have my money already. I could probably get a refund at this point because I still got late pledge available, but even then it's like if a lot of people are doing that, it's like, is the game going to come if people are refunding it? The more people that refund, the less money the company has. And is it that they release new campaigns like Deep Madness and things like that? Is that keeping them afloat? It's up for debate, really. They don't say everything. They're going to make another new game, Celestial, probably late this year, next year. But, they need to get this one out the door, or people won't be backing it. Not too many people backed Deep Madness when it came back. And for me as well, I was like, well, you've still not finished Dawn of Madness. I'm not going to pick up the new Deep Madness. So a lot going on here with this one. Maybe they'll come out and be good, but another thing that turned me off getting the game at the time was this part where they were like, the feedback from the community. This is a lot, they were changing like a load of how the game works, and now it works completely different than any like prototype video that you might see like King of Averages one. The game's completely different to how it used to be, and they had a finished like prototype showed off like last year, and it's still not outdoor, this game, because of the story side of it. And that's just taking a long time, and I'm here to buy board games, play them. It's taken like too long for a game like Dawn of Madness to get out the door. To now it's been like, I'm just glad I didn't actually sit around waiting for it with my money just up there when I could have, been buying other things or putting it towards something better for me, rather than just a game that's, just been sitting there cooking up for 4 years, but it's still not here. It's like, it's something that I've had other games I've backed after this that have come much quicker. I've had other games come earlier that are It took just as long, really, but they, they at least estimate the game time a bit better, and not saying it's going to come in 2 years when they really need a lot more if they're going to rework half the game. And too much reworking, that just puts you off backing it at the time. For me, it's like you can't just say, here's our vision, this is the game we're going to make, but actually because of what people are saying, we're going to change it all. It's like, shouldn't you stick to what you wanted to make in the first place, and then roll with it? Because most people didn't play it. Only a very few people actually played this game before it actually came out on the Kickstarter. So I think that it's just something that with all this changes and stuff, it's too much to actually try and change the game after you've already set your design in mind. Really, so that for me, it's just a game that just stopped me from packing it really before on the campaign, and stopped me getting the late pledge also for now. Okay, so the last game on the list to go through, well, this one, if you know what it is when you see it, you already know clearly why it's on this list, and that is Village Attacks Grim Dynasty. So this one, funded in the same year as Dawn of Madness. Actually, it was in 2019, and it was supposed to come out 2020. And of course, if you know about this game, well, actually this game is not come out, and it's likely never coming out unless someone else can pick up the pieces and actually release it, because Grimlore Games themselves, they have gone into liquidation, and it's simply because of their poor management of their company. Really, that's generally how this has happened. You can see people put the money down. We had 3,200 backers. People were going for this one, and for me, I didn't wanted to back it at the time when it was on this Kickstarter campaign. I wasn't looking at it. I didn't notice it. I think I did state, 2019 is the year I started getting into these games, but for this one I wasn't really into the YouTube space. I just kind of saw a bit here or there what had been coming out, and that's how I noticed games. I started watching new channels, but no one really covered this one at the time for me. But you've got all the different pledges. They were reprinting the entire game that existed, which people do think is a decent game, but it's just the way it's been released and managed by Grimlore Games. It's just not coming out. They've took the money and ran. They wasted all the money on getting like other games like the Everrain out, or other projects on other accounts. Other people have covered this on YouTube, but it's just a game where they had this up and trying to get people to buy it, but there are all these different items, all this stuff that people could actually buy, and none of it's coming because no one's getting this game now. It's just sad, really. For me, it's just, I'm glad I have not backed it, and I almost did, and I almost did it much later, because this game was on GameFound for several years after this. Like as soon as GameFound was kind of like starting up, this game was on there as a late pledge, maybe in like 2021, 2022. So really up till late it was available, but they were just trying to take a bit of money to keep them afloat, really. But not enough to actually get this game out the door. And that's why, for me, it's like sometimes you worry. Don't look at, if you look at a game with a low funding amount and it's like a massive game with loads of different items, it's something that might not actually come out. It's just going to be something that's a big risk on you. And I'm worried for other games like ones previous in this that still haven't shipped. Are they going to go out of business, or is this just like some companies happen, some companies, they're hiding it quite well. You'll see people in the comments here, saying, we're not getting it, terrible, how do they do this? They've been looking into all this stuff, seeing what they were making, what they've been doing. They just kind of took the money and run with it, really. That's what most people have come to the conclusion with. And just to say, look, this is how they do it. This is how they announced it. They hardly give updates to people on Kickstarter, and then they just go, actually, yeah, we're going out of business. Because if you look through the updates about the game and stuff, shipping progress, they had this April 1st, in 2022. They released that joke of an update on April Fool's Day, and then the next update next year in May 2023. So they you know, they say it's gonna come. Some things are gonna happen. You know, shipping's bad, but it wasn't that shipping was bad. The problem was that they weren't allocating funds to make this game. They were just doing it for other things, like getting the Everrain out there, which is what they say in some of these updates. But they didn't like regularly update people saying, you know, the game's done, we're just waiting or anything. They just, you know, very rarely update people. So yeah, and that was like the red flags for me. As soon as I saw that they never really communicated, I was like, actually, you know, there's a high likelihood I'm not going to get this game if I actually put money down. You know, it's very likely it's not coming to my door. The only opportunity then for me is like, wait till it comes to retail, and that's when you pick it up. But you know, it's never going to come to retail, so the only way to get Village Attacks now is to find a copy that some store might still have, or find it pre-owned. That's about it, really. So yeah, that's been 5 quick games here that I'm glad I didn't get. Is there any games that you have in mind that you glad I didn't get? I think like Mythic games also come to mind, but for me, a lot of them I never really got into. Maybe one, but I kind of left that one out here because it's just, we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, that's all got to say here. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks for listening. Bye.